So I just finished watching Midnight Mass on Netflix, and I just wanted to give some of my thoughts. And please be aware that there will be spoilers. You may see this light like coming up here. It's not the briefcase from Pulp Fiction. I promise. It's actually I have the iPad here set up with the cast of Midnight Mass to kind of help me describe to you what I felt about some of the characters. And so just to give a little context, right now uh, there are three shows that I'm watching. I think many people are watching that are dealing with vampires. It's Chapelwaite on Epix. It's American Horror Story, which kind of has a vampire slant this particular season. Not full on vampire, but kind of, sort of. And then this show. And I would say, uh, in order, like, of course, I've now finished Midnight Mass, and American Horror Story is not finished yet. Neither is Chapelwaite, but Chapelwaite I think is about to finish soon. I would say that American Horror Story is number one, Midnight Mass number two, and Chapelwaite number three in terms of one of the better TV vampire kind of horror series that's on currently. But this show definitely suffers from something. If you have seen any of my previous reviews for Netflix shows, this show, and say the same thing almost every single time, this show suffers from that same thing. Is that there's 7 episodes in this particular season of Midnight Mass, and this show could have been done in 3, maybe 4. There's a lot of going into characters I just did not care about. One of the main ones being Riley Flynn, who, when the series starts, you see him in the very beginning of the series. He ends up killing a girl like in a drunken driver kind of accident thing. His whole like laying out of his story and his feelings, it was such a drag. I would say him, and also Erin Green, who was kind of a love interest who left town and came back, and she was pregnant, and like they just kind of went on and on. And there were even times when I was fast forwarding through like their discussions. It's like I do not care. And then for the series coming to an end, you could have still gotten across the message or their their arc without having given them so much time and so many scenes. Like I'm telling you, it was like watching paint dry. The most compelling characters in this show, uh, definitely the villains, and it was even they were kind of like neutral gray villains. There was one that was a full-on villain, but then I would say that Father Paul, he was fantastic. Like every time the story kind of dealt with his stuff, the series dealt with his stuff, I was fully engaged, as well as Bev Keane, who's definitely the big villain of the whole show. And how she like kind of power talks over everybody, and she wants things kind of her way, but she ends up paying the price in the end of the show, right? The real hook of this show, what I did enjoy about this show, the whole thing of how religion can paint any kind of situation as a good thing. When thinking about the scenario and how it's played out, it's very tough to blame Father Paul, Monsignor Pruitt, for going along his line of thinking. He was in Jerusalem. He went out into the desert. He went into a cave and he found a winged creature. Now the main vampire in this show is kind of like a Nosferatu, bald head, long fingers, like long nails, fangs, kind of thing. Except he has wings, and this led Father Paul to believe that this is an angel. When the vampires first saw this Father Paul, he chomped on him, and but for some reason he gave him some of his blood. And as we know from vampire movie rules, that anytime a vampire gives you his blood or his or her blood, you become a vampire too, right? He believed like this was like God telling him like bring this to the masses, bring this back to your parish, and like kind of let them have this gift as well. So he wasn't selfish in that. But then the cool parts of the show are like you're starting to see the vampirism, and they never call it that during the series, but you start to see the effects of it. And like I said, this is this vampire movie brain from watching so many vampire movies. Like I'm assuming that he just wasn't feeding and he was getting sick from it, and you see him like vomiting, and there's a lot of vomiting and like stuff coming out of people's mouths. The series is never really scary in my eyes, but like I said, when it came stuff to the religion and kind of painting a picture of this as being a good thing, and I don't think this is exclusive to Christianity because I can see a lot of different religions like seeing this creature as a sign, and then his blood uh, giving. And one of the things that Father Paul does is he starts to this creature, this vampire, that gave him like eternal life, and it also made him young again. He was like an old man when he found this creature, and then it made him a young person again. And he starts to, the creature actually is kind of in league with Father Paul. They never are actually speaking one, to each other back and forth, but they're in league with each other because he's providing blood that he goes ahead when he's giving like the sacrament and communion to his parish, to his flock. He's putting in the blood of the vampire inside like the wine, and people are drinking that. But then they start to see miraculous things. Like there's this one girl who couldn't walk. Her name was Lisa. She was a great character as well in the show, and I liked all her stuff as well. The whole thing of like forgiving the guy who like shot her in her back, and that guy was like a drunk. And that character's name was Joe Collie. I liked his arc as well. Father Paul starts putting the blood of the vampire inside the sacrament of communion, and miraculous things start happening. You see senior citizens turning young again, and people who had ailments like a back problem, like it starts to go away, and everybody's like, nobody's like kind of questioning this because maybe they all see each other. They're all living on an island. Very like Salem's Lot. I'm thinking like Shape of Weight is based off of Salem's Lot, so very like a Salem's Lot. Everybody kind of in one little area. And like I said, this in this particular show, Midnight Mass, in a particular one island. They eventually, long story short, they all end up becoming vampires. This the last episode is like has some really great like kind of vampire zombie like the townspeople attacking each other, the infected, the not infected. I really enjoyed the effect of once kind of you become a vampire, you get like these. When you see cats in the dark, they have like those reflective eyes. Like the people who turn into these vampires end up having these same reflective eyes, which I thought was very cool. But once again, this show I enjoyed it. It's not great. It's good, but it still could have been cut. Like it's a 7 hour plus miniseries, and it could have been cut down to 4. Like cut out the pregnant woman stuff, cut out the Riley Flynn stuff, some other little conversations here and there, and like you could just make this a lot leaner, and it still would have, I think, had the same effect as it had. Like the final episode was great. I don't know if it leads to a season 2 because the main vampire, he kind of gets away, kind of, sort of, but it's assumed that he wouldn't get far because his wings were damaged. But I don't think this definitely doesn't need a season 2. Like one and done is fine. But Midnight Mass, like I said, is good if you're looking for a good vampire show. But those are my thoughts on Midnight Mass. If you agree, disagree, I definitely want to hear from you. Do so down below. I'm always bigger on feedback than I am with subscribers. If you want to subscribe, that's great. But I want to talk to you. So comment below, and thank you so much for watching.